The 2003 Australian film Rabbit-Proof Fence demonstrates the forceful removal of three half-caste girls who were sent away to a training camp to become domestic workers as part of a government policy to integrate them into a Eurocentric society. The fence symbolizes the division between Aboriginal and European culture. It also is a metaphor for the cruelty and incompetence of the colonial government, and how we still carry on this Eurocentric practice in modern Australia. In this video essay, it will depict the struggle for cultural existence in the film Rabbit-Proof Fence, analysing the historical topology of the fence, particularly focusing on the symbolism of the fence, how it structured Australia during this time period, and the contemporary use of fences in modern Australia. The film begins with a voice of the now 85-year-old Molly Craig, introducing her story in her language. As the viewer hears her voice, we also see with her eyes as the camera pans to the ground to her feet as she walks, her land portrayed in an aesthetic of earth tones and pebbles, which suggests the notion towards traditional Aboriginal dot painting. The footsteps contour the screen in a wide shot of a now recognisable landscape for non-Indigenous viewers. This opening sequence concludes with the older Molly saying, they were building a long fence. This visual opening invites the viewer to approach the land from an Indigenous point of view, demonstrating the everyday experience of children before being forcefully removed. For Indigenous and non-Indigenous perspectives, the knowledge and attachment to land and history are explored as the fence both separates and holds these aerial, visual, spatial, and cultural contradictions. This film provides an effective integration of cultural basis of Western habitation of place, as it demonstrates the forceful removal of three half-caste girls, Molly, Gracie, and Daisy, who were sent away to a training camp to become domestic workers as part of a government policy to integrate them into a Eurocentric society, and their fight to preserve their culture and identity against the colonial political system, shown by the struggle, which is a long journey on foot towards the homeland, reflecting the Aboriginal people's rejection and resistance for the devastation of the Indigenous society and their cultural heritage. This struggle and exploration of cultural identity is shown in the 7:30 report on the ABC, which reports on a new exhibition called But Not As You Know It, where more than 100 female Indigenous artists at the Australian Gallery of Victoria challenge what Aboriginal art is meant to look like. This is shown in Destiny Deacon's artwork Adoption, which is seen in the program, where she comments on the violence against the Aboriginal body, but it is also a juxtaposition against white Australian suburbia, which can be related back to the removal of the three sisters and their cultural identity. The fence takes on a figure and function of a newly historicised symbol that mediates a number of possible new relations to the story and the film, as it symbolises the division between Aboriginal culture and European culture, as the fence links the camp and their distant home territory, which stretches from one coast to another, helping the girls find their way home. European settlers viewed fences as a separation tools to create space from the wilderness and domesticated spaces, symbolizing the triumph of the weak over the strong, powerless over the powerful oppression. It has a subversive potential. The fence unsettles it as an icon of European settlement, demonstrating to the Anglo-Australian audiences the destruction to Aboriginal culture and identity, but also the dramatic shift in relation to the connection to our country and how we still carry on these Eurocentric practices in modern Australia. Therefore, becoming a metaphor for the cruelty and incompetence of the colonial government and their desire to keep problems which they created at arm's length, thus the fence transforms into an iconic figure as it becomes a pilgrimage site. It is seen as an empathetic identification with the three sisters and their story. It also brings into account the cultural symbolism of the girls' stories and the conflicts between the two cultures that mark the myth of Australian nationhood. Both physically and metaphorically, the fence is used for communication and exchange for the girls. It symbolizes love, attachment, and security as much as it is connected them to their community. This connection to a community can be seen in ACCA's 2018 group exhibition, Our Lightness of Spirit is the Measure of Happiness, where 10 Indigenous artists explore community, family, and humour, celebrated in contemporary Aboriginal life. This modern exhibition can be applied to the three sisters' resilience who come together to strengthen their identity and connection to their culture. Fences help structure colonial Australia by ending the essence of Aboriginal culture, connection to the land and the way of life by hunting and gathering. With the introduction of fences came the development of religions, the European philosophical tradition of Cartesian dualism, the mind and body split, which is the underlying structure of European colonialism, that can be further defined as subject-object relation. This is a contrast to Aboriginal belief, which is based on the connection of spirit, mind, and land connected as one. There is no separation between them. The fence signifies the further inscription of colonial occupation, the bounding place as property. The fence being wire carries the connotation of more than an enclosure. In a contemporary context, we still use this colonial practice to fence our homes, gardens, and other possessions from other people and animals. This is how modern Australia has come to understand and interact with our landscapes, especially modern and largely urban Australia. Our sense of land and country is dominated by possession and utility. We segment the land and define it by personal ownership and profitability, like our European ancestors. We are people of fences, of impervious boundaries. In conclusion, rabbit-proof fence reflects the Aboriginal people's struggle for cultural existence. This struggle is due to not belonging to a colonialist culture and political system. In these heavy political times, we have forgotten the colonial history that fences hold and the damage that it has done to Aboriginal culture and their identity. Thank you.